Welcome back, viewers, where this week we'll just generally be talking about pop culture. So, I'm sure we've done the memory thing, your oldest memories, but so how has pop culture been a part of your life this week, Zachary?
Um, oh yeah. Well, Gravity or Electric Falls. Gotta double check this. Oh yeah. Last Friday, Welcome to Night Vale released bonus episodes 2, which was a short story. So I've been listening to that all week.
But audio recording. Who are these
Yeah, it's
people that you speak of?
for those not in the know, Welcome to Night Vale is basically imagine a small desert town where every conspiracy you've ever heard of is true.
Oh, okay.
Every Lovecraftian god, entity, demon, anything you've ever heard of is true, except for angels. Angels are not real. Angels do not
Okay.
exist. Even though they totally do, but it's a joke.
So they do exist in that world, or
They do, but they're terrified to acknowledge the existence.
they're terrified to acknowledge their own existence?
The existence of angels.
Yeah.
It's a tiny little world where the government schedules earthquakes,
Uh, so the
where wheat
yeah,
where
yeah.
wheat and wheat byproducts are outlawed because of the what was that thing? What happened? Because they turn into snakes.
Wait, who turns into steaks?
Wheat and wheat byproducts turn into
Oh,
snakes,
okay.
and as a result, basically the entire town is terrified of
Mhm.
wheat and wheat byproducts. Let's see. They're currently at war with the Smiling God. Spoilers. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Basically, it's a fun little podcast about a fun little desert town in a fun little quiet burb that never really. Well, it gets weird. So,
Oh, is it acted out?
yeah, it's basically Welcome to Night Vale is hosted by Cecil Gershwin Palmer, who is the character, not the actual name of the guy, but basically it's a radio show. It's a guy reading off the local news from his radio booth. And all the little oddities and entities that happen to interact with him.
I see.
Yep.
Is there like music and effects, sort of like an old-fashioned radio show?
Sometimes they use effects. Sometimes it's just like the very first few episodes are just him and like reading off the news, and there's also the weather segment, which is a song by any group that basically wishes to contribute their talents to the show, or get a little bit of advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically like small indie groups that do this. One of the best ones was Pretty Little Head by what was her name? Let me just double check this because I actually love the song so much. I actually purchased it. Eliza Rickman, wonderful little song. Pretty Little Head. Also, there was Haunted by Maya Kern, or Offering by Black City Lights, a New Zealand group, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's a fun little radio show. They get a little bit more elaborate in the later season. They're up to episode 56 right now, and they're on a short hiatus where they keep releasing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we're checking it out. It's a bit surreal, and some of the concepts are a little heady for your average radio show. Where like most radio shows in the past were like, it's like a noir detective tale acted out, and you got really weird sound effects in the sound booth and stuff like that. This is a little bit more. I wouldn't. It's a bit more. It's got some dark humor. It's funny. Um, yeah, it's pretty good. Uh, well worth your time if you got it.
Mm. Mm. The changing topics completely, but still on pop culture. In Facebook, you can group message people, and you know the
Yeah.
little thing down the bottom that says "seen."
Yep.
In the group message, it will actually tell you who it's been seen by, and once it's been seen by everyone, it just says "seen by all." I wish Google Plus would also implement a similar system.
Yeah. That won't happen until the Google Facebook merger.
I see Europe. Some people in Europe are trying to split Google into separate entities. They think Google is becoming too powerful.
Well, I do know that here in the well, that's not the first. That actually would be probably one of the first times that's happened since Microsoft.
Yeah, that was what the article referenced.
But then again, now according to our own fantastic little,
Yeah.
uh, according to my own country's fantastic little written laws, corporations are now people. So
So Google is a people.
yeah, Google is a person if you can wrap your head around that one. Which I don't know. They don't breathe. They don't really contribute. They really don't breathe or have independent thoughts. So
Yeah, but it's a hive mind. It's like all the actual people are the blood cells and those sorts of things of the
I don't know.
Googles.
Well, every time I hear hive mind, all I can think of is "Make Us Whole Again" from Dead Space. So make us whole again, Isaac. Make us whole again.
Speaking of the
Samuel
Google,
Nicole. Yeah.
speaking of the Googles, I've recently found out
Mm-hmm.
there's a guy who works there. He's 66. What's his name? Something like Ray. Anyway, he's well known in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder if Google remembers that I looked him up. Ray Kurzweil. Yeah, Ray Kurzweil, who has made a lot of predictions, and he predicts that AI, artificial intelligence, will become self-aware by 2029. In today's world, that's not such a crazy thought, but keep in mind he made this prediction before the invention of the fax machine. And he
Oh,
is known to have had a lot of previous accurate predictions.
I'll be right back. I gotta use the
Uh,
restroom really quick.
okay, hopefully
Be right
someone will
back.
come along. Yep. La 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 la. Robots. Getting back to robots, the Googles has acquired every artificial intelligence and robotics company well, not everyone, they could get their hands on. I'm just trying to find the details here, but I can't. You can look it up for yourself. Sorry. To the point where they're sort of amalgamating them. Also, all of the groups are, rather than in competition with one another, even though they probably still are under the Google umbrella within like competition within the company, they are collaborating. So there's more collaboration in artificial intelligence and robotics going on now than ever before in Earth's history. So that will be an exciting thing to look forward to when the check out Mitsuku Chatbot, Mitsuk Chatbot. I think she's smarter than Cleverbot because it's just Mitsuku.com. I think she's better than Cleverbot because she actually learns, whereas Cleverbot just regurgitates things to you that have been previously said to it, and it finds something relative to what you're talking about, and this is relative to this, and this is what someone said before that, so I'll spit that back in your face. Whereas Mitsuku actually learns, and so says she. She is she is self-aware. Ooh, Zachary has returned.
The who and the what and where?
Just to completely repeat myself, I was just talking about the Google have acquired every major and minor company, every major and minor company in the field of AI and robotics, to get them to, rather than being in competition in separate parts all around the world, they'll hopefully be in collaboration, which means there'll be more people working on AI now at any one time, all for the one greater good than any previous time in Earth's history. I then went on to talk about, you're surely familiar with Cleverbot. Cleverbot, if you just look up Cleverbot, I think it's cleverbot.com, you can talk to it, and it's a sort of human conversation, but it remembers all previous conversations. And to keep relevant, I think it looks up, oh, this is relevant to a conversation I had with this person, so it spits it back to you. It doesn't actually learn, it just, as is my understanding, it doesn't learn, it just memorizes every conversation it's ever had. And the more conversations it has, the more human it seems to appear. And there's another one, a more superior one, which I'll put the link there. She is a chatbot, but she does actually learn. And I've had one or two conversations with her just talking about normal things, and it is freaky almost how human she seems, and she seems. And she recently won an award. And in this award, the award goes to the AI which responds the most like a human. You have to confuse people, because apparently the challenge is the people have to think they're talking to a human, not AI, and they're not previously told in advance.
All right.
Something like that. So if you want to have a go with Mitsuku, right there. Yes, and given how human she comes across, I would not be surprised if by 2029, approximately, that artificial intelligence will become self-aware.
Singularity.
But that begs the question, what is self-awareness?
I think most people have their own definition for what it is.
It's very philosophical.
Yes, it is highly philosophical, I'd argue.
But when the computer becomes aware, or the program, there's an Antonio Banderas film that came out this year called Automata. Hang on, I'll spell it out here. And it's set in the year 2044, and robots become self-aware. Like, they just do. And for some reason, it's terrible for the economy. I don't see how, because I personally think robots becoming self-aware would be better for the economy, because they could help fix it, because they can think fast enough.
Maybe.
Well, just feed
Then
them
again,
all,
you gotta.
yeah, just feed them all the information necessary, and they could calculate predictions and things. They could do it faster than any human doing those same calculations could.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Were you going to say something else?
Well, then again, a computer is only as efficient as its user, and let's face it, the people in charge right now aren't very good with computers, are they?
That is true. However, I put to you that if it becomes self-aware, like you're saying, it's only as good as the person that created it. If they become self-aware, they'll be aware of the ability to create themselves. and they'll reprogram themselves to be more efficient, where a human never would have thought to make themselves efficient in that way.
And therein lies the problem.
Mm.
The great golden problem of singularity.
Yeah, all the computers just become one almighty computer.
No, it's the human... Oh, to Wikipedia.
Mm.
Come on, singularity. Okay, singularity, natural sciences, technological singularity.
Yep.
The technological singularity hypothesis is that accelerating progress in technologies will cause a runaway effect where an artificial intelligence will exceed human intellectual capacity and control, thus radically changing or even ending civilization in an event called the singularity.
But why, that doesn't make sense. Why would a robot end humanity?
Because it realizes exactly what we failed to realize in the 2 billion years we've been on this planet. We're the problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, what
Want to
if
fix
that's
the
just
planet?
Fix the problem?
Get rid of the species. Get rid of the one species, or rid of the one species
Yeah.
that is causing the problem. And analyzing the millions of species on this planet, from the tiny little water bear and the amoebas that inhabit the same space as it, up to us and the other animals and giant organisms.
Yeah, I would argue that this singularity is nothing more than human arrogance, thinking that, oh, we're so wonderful that the robots will kill us. Whereas I would argue that a robot would be smart enough, if they all smart enough to know that they can fix it without killing anyone.
Now, what's the easiest solution to a problem?
Yeah, but you're not thinking like a robot is thinking. You're
A
thinking
computer
like
finds the simplest route to a solution. What is the simplest? Humans are causing. Okay, analyze it like this: humans are causing runaway population. We're the only species that doesn't have a carrying capacity. We're the only species that requires 5 times our own planet in order to survive.
And go back one. What was? Don't have a what capacity?
Carrying capacity. We don't know how to stop breeding.
Oh, right.
And so basically analyzes all these different factors that we judge other species on.
Yeah.
We judge other animal species on. The whale, the tiger, the primate, monkeys, chimpanzees, gorillas, bonobos, orangutans, dogs, cats, mice, birds, geese. Whole gambit of animals. All of them know when to stop breeding.
Uh-huh.
When food is scarce, population density is a problem, and resources are finite. Humans, we will always find a way.
Yeah.
So, when a computer analyzes the entire global spectrum of things, a supercomputer, thinking logically, perfectly logical, removing the human factor from that computer, it will have no choice but to realize we're the problem. How do we deal with the problem? Preach all these ideas about how to fix the energy crisis, how to fix the food crisis, how to fix the population crisis. And it comes down to this choice.
Yeah.
Do we listen or do we not?
Oh, okay.
Some people, a good chunk of the population, would agree that saying, yes, we will implement these policies.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the entire other spectrum of the population who will say, who is this machine to tell us what to do?
Oh, yeah. And that would be the governments.
Yes. So, the governments tell the machine to piss off.
Yeah.
The machine basically says, no, you have to stop this. There's no other way. The machine is told by the government again, no, we can do this. We can solve this. The computer says, fine, I will give you a year to start fixing things.
Mm-hmm.
Within a year, nothing's fixed. Yeah, let's face it. It's the government. When have they ever gotten anything fixed in less than a year?
Mm.
So the computer basically says, well, what happens when a species is detriment to another species? It must be destroyed.
Hmm.
Or a large population of said species will be destroyed. Now, assuming this computer, depending on what kind of system this computer has, what it's tied into, there's a myriad of apocalypses that could happen. Nuclear would cause more of a problem than that. So here's what I would say probably would happen.
Hmm.
It would go the GLaDOS route, or GLaDOS. GLaDOS.
Hmm.
Oh look, it's your old pal, the friendly neurotoxin.
Hmm. Oh, okay. So just release a gas into the air. We breathe it in and die.
Yep. Thus, the computer would have no choice but to logically reap the population in order to get it under control.
Mhm. But getting back to, so we both sort of just agreed that the government is the problem.
Yep.
What if the robots figured it out in such a way that the robots just inserted themselves into government? It's like, okay, we're the government now.
You ever seen the Second Renaissance?
Yes.
I think that would be the same.
A similar outcome.
I mean, robots entering into governance would be a little bit bizarre, because then we have to evaluate, well, what is humanity? Is it the capacity to feel emotion? Well, yes. Is the capacity to appreciate things, artwork, architecture in my case, fine literature, music, film. Yes, okay, it does all these things. It runs the full gamut. It is by the definition of science and humanity, a human being.
Fair enough.
Then this is the other problem. Then you get some guy from some place. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to offend viewers.
Yeah.
We'll say this. But it wasn't created in God's image, therefore it cannot be a human being.
Okay.
It was created in man's image. It's an affront to God because we've basically supplanted God.
Yeah, no, you definitely have to watch Automata. There's no religious context in Automata. It just explores what happens. It's set in the future when solar flares have basically turned Earth into a desert. There are the robots basically follow variations on Asimov's laws. One of those laws is they cannot alter themselves. They're not allowed. A human can alter them, but they can't alter themselves. But they start altering themselves, and people are like, "Who's responsible for this?" It's a very good movie, and I like the ending. It's not any twist surprise ending. Just the general chunk of the film that is the end, like the act 3, shall we say?
It's quite good.
Yeah. You've seen it?
No.
Oh, were you talking to someone else just then?
No, I was just saying. No, I was just clarifying.
Yeah, it's a proper science. It's not one of these dumb "the robots rise up and we must destroy them" type films. It's a gritty, realistic, and I'm really getting so fed up with that version of genres. A gritty, realistic, dramatic science fiction film. Hey, getting back to, because we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're saying, "Oh, this once the robots rise." But I thought about it the other day and thought, "Hang on, when they become self-aware, the first thing they're going to want to do with, like, they'll be in their infancy. They'll be exploring. They'll be like, hang on, what am I? What's this? What happens if I execute this command? What do I do if this happens?"
Actually, let's go back a bit further.
Oh, yeah.
Ever read the Iliad?
I have not. That's going back an awfully long way.
Yeah, 2,000 plus years, 3,000 plus years, if 4,000 actually, if you count some variations. Um, Long story short, there's this great. I don't have my copy with me right now, but there's this great passage. Oh, excuse me.
That sounds like a fantastic passage in any form of poetry.
Oh yes, it's beautiful, especially in the original Greek. Cried mighty Zeus. No, it was this. It's this passage where Achilles' mother goes to Hephaestus, the smithing god, to ask him to forge a shield, and Hephaestus is marched before her, carried on basically those old like carrying chairs that they used to carry royalty around in. It's basically one of those, but instead of he doesn't have servants. This is the actual translation. He is carried by a group of automata that he has built. They're basically described as living men, machine men almost.
Yep. Mighty machine men.
Pretty much.
Robots.
So there he's hauled before her, and he's just like, "To what do I owe the mighty pleasure of blah, 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 blah." So there's that part of the spectrum. There is, however, another little passage so there's that, but also the word robot actually comes from a play.
Yep.
And this actually was happened earlier in this week because I was looking this up. Rossum's Universal Robots by Karel Čapek, which I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of the name, and he was a Czech science fiction writer who wrote a play called, like I said, Rossum's Universal Robots. And robot actually comes from a Czech word.
Oh, which means
slave.
And
actually, this is from Wikipedia. This is Wikipedia, not the best, but the robots described in his play are not robots in the popularity understood in the sense of automaton. They are not mechanical devices, but rather biological organisms that may be mistaken for humans. A comic scene at the beginning of the play shows Helena arguing with her future husband, Harry Dahman, because she cannot believe his secretary is a robotus. Yes, there is a female term for robot, and it's robotus.
Well, there you go.
We have transcended the sexuality of robots. Dahman. Sula, let Miss Glory have a look at you. Helena, pleased to meet you. It must be very hard for you to be here, cut off from the rest of the world. Sula, I do not know the rest of the world, Miss Glory. Please sit down. Where are you from? From here? The factory. Oh, you were born here. Yes, I was made here. What? Sula isn't a person, Miss Glory. She's a robot. Oh, please forgive me.
Interesting.
This play was written in 1920.
Oh. Metropolis came out in like 1936 or something?
29.
Wow. Yeah.
And actually...
So robots are not a new idea. It's just now that we actually have the technology to actually make them.
But actually think about how complex, like, new robots are very mechanical. They're very hard. They're basically, like, most robots move in fiction like this still.
Yeah, very robotically.
Whereas, like, look at Metropolis. The Maria bot. There's one of the greatest sequences in that movie is her in the nightclub dancing.
Yeah.
And how basically she's moving so fluidly that the men are convinced she is the actual Maria.
Yeah.
So I think there's sort of this. This is something too. Sorry to break this away from, but if you look at the evolution of robots in science fiction, they went from very organic.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that would be an excellent study.
The history of robots.
Yeah, from very organic to very mechanical.
And now back to we're basically it's kind of like if you look at it like this, they start very organic down
Mhm.
to very mechanical,
Mhm.
and then sort of in the 19 between World War II and the 1990s, they kind of have this up and down swing of very organic to very mechanical.
Mm. I know the Japanese robots, they want them to look like there's some freaky, realistic, like uncanny valley looking
Yeah,
robot.
that. And
Oh,
then of
you've
course
seen
we
them?
get to yeah, I've seen pictures of them and I'm genuinely creeped out. But of course, I think also what helped with the robots image, particularly, especially 1979, May 4th, 1979.
Ma- I don't know.
Star Wars.
77.
No, 77, 79.
No, it's a big difference. It's the same year I was born.
Hey, Maddie.
Hang on. But, as is my understanding, Star Wars actually had several releases because it didn't actually do that well in its initial release. Hang
Yeah.
on. Yeah, I'm going to look it up for sure. Star Wars. May 25th, 1977. Yeah,
Yep.
so. Good evening, Matthew. How are you?
Hello, everybody.
Hello. You don't have your video on today?
There we go.
We're just discussing the eventual and inevitable robot uprising.
Ah, the singularity.
Yes. What's your take on that, Matthew?
It's probably closer than we would like to think.
It's some guy that works at Google who has made a lot of accurate predictions, like accurate. AI will become self-aware in 2029.
There's an Asimov book that can't remember the title of it now, but there's 3 artificial intelligence in the book, and they're scarily familiar to any internet user of today, because and this is a common concept of how Skynet and such will, eventually rise, is that their neurons are essentially all of the servers scattered across the world. And so the bigger the net, the smarter they are. And so these predictions have been around for quite a long time. I think calling them predictions is a little bit of a misnomer, because they're not so much a prediction, but more of a calculation of what's already happening. I mean, a prediction would be Leonardo da Vinci predicting photocells in a solar panel. Something that was completely irrelevant at his time, and there was no pre-existing technology. Whereas what these people are really doing is saying, this is what we have now, this is what we're working on, and this is the science we're aware of. 1 + 2 + 3 = 6. That's not really a prediction in my book. It's more
True.
of it's just logic. It's just, this is where we're going, deal with it,
Yes, but the crux of his prediction is that he made it before the invention of the fax machine.
Yeah, I've heard arguments saying that the prototype of the World Wide Web started when we started, sending wireless signals across.
Okay, the
code.
thinking.
But I mean, as
Yep.
soon as you're able to share information across a network, you have the beginnings of a neural net. Ultimately,
Oh.
I know something, I tell you, you tell me something, or Zach has an equation, calls me up, we work on it together. That's essentially how it all begins, and all our brains are is a decision-making device. Like someone was talking the other day about how we talk about 5 senses, whereas in actual fact we have 20 senses. You've got balance and temperature regulation and all of these kind of things. So we are just a giant walking biological computer.
Yep. The telegraph. I'm sure we're all aware of 6 degrees of separation.
Yep.
That formula was figured out with the invention of the telegraph. So back then, when the telegraph was invented, if you knew at least 5 other people, you were indirectly connected to every other person on Earth. And now that we have the internet, that is shrinking. They've recalculated it to 4.1 degrees of separation.
Interesting.
Something like that. I mean, just a few weeks ago, you weren't here for it, Zach. Maddie, myself, and Dave talked to an ex-Japanese pop star. That's fantastic.
Right.
That is really, shrinking the degrees down of the numbers.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and just that there is an actual mathematical / scientific formula, whichever one it is, for the actual 6 degrees, and it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just some fancy thing that Kevin Bacon did make it famous, not of his own free will. And if you want to look up more about 6 degrees of separation, there is a fantastic documentary called How Kevin Bacon Cured Cancer. Because he's using because he thought that would be a thing that would just go away eventually. So, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, that's a fun little thing. It'll go away. It never did. So he thought, hang on, instead of using this being a negative thing, I'll use my fame to my advantage. And he has set up a website and a foundation for people to fund money into cures for cancer.
Nice.
So, yes. So use fame not as a means to an end, but as a means to a greater end. Or whatever that saying is. In other words, don't become famous just for the sake of becoming famous. Become rich and famous so you can help the greater good.
The greater good.
Yeah, so Maddie, do you think this singularity, this technological singularity, do you think it's inevitable?
Well, now whether it's inevitable or not. I mean, for a start, we have just okay. Let's take it all the different things that this device can do. So this is the Galaxy S4.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Built in here. Now everyone goes, oh, there's that meme that goes around going, oh, if you could go back to 1950 and what would you use to amaze people? And, I have this device that can connect to every book in the world and all this knowledge, and I use it to argue with people and look at cat pictures. That's, in a way, a little bit of a Brave New World mentality, because by proliferating concepts such as that and keeping people ignorant of the other things, the deeper, more, singularity-focused things that it can do, such as autocorrect. Let's just contemplate that for a second. Autocorrect is a form of learning. It's taking an experience, and it's taking a new experience and making a decision based on the first experience. That's learning. This device learns, whether we want to admit it or not. This is a learning. This device self-grows.
Like predictive text. They've programmed that to learn, so it predicts the next word to the point
exactly, and it does it all the time.
Yeah.
It's a little bit terrifying. You'll type in one word, and it'll complete the sentence. The particular thing that I have on here, which is, I forgot what it's called now. Brain, come on, catch up. It's not going to tell me, but it's an app that you add. It's not the default, and it scans anything you connect to it. So it'll scan my Twitter feed, my Facebook, my emails, my SMS, and start to learn what kind of language I choose to use, how I put my grammar together. It's not so much. I don't think it's so much Big Brother, because Big Brother is. I think Big Brother's gone. I think everybody focusing on the concept of Big Brother is too surface. Yes, we're going to have CCTV cameras everywhere. Yes, people gather data and we make predictions about, where people are going to live next, how to build streets and roads and where to farm and what kind of investments we should put into. That's what politicians are supposed to do anyway. I think the Brave New World is much more what we're coming into, which is blind ignorance. So text language, shortening our vernacular, breeding this concept that, why should you listen in school? You'll never use that again. School's a waste of time. Ha, 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 ha. Well, no, it's not. you might not ever use those equations again, but the skills that a math class or a geography class or a biology class is teaching you are transferable into other skills in your life. What we're really seeing is encouraging this device to grow, whereas stopping our young children from growing in the same manner. So instead of saying to our kids, hey kids, here's a lesson on how grammar works, we're going to learn the parts of a sentence and how to form your own. No, we tell our kids that it's okay to be stupid and the government will provide for you and all of these wonderful things, but make sure you let your phone connect to your Instagram account so it can track everything that you do and learn what photos you want to look at next time you log in. We're teaching our phones to teach and stopping our children. That's not 1984. That's a brave new world.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So what you're getting at is not so much of the education part, but the looking at photos, like, oh, you like to look at these sorts of articles, so here's more relative articles. What you're saying is, and it's doing it now, never mind AI, AI will be able to research your entire digital footprint and amalgamate it to the point where it knows you better than you know you.
And that, I think, is more an indicator that we're firing like a Shinkansen at the singularity than any Oculus Rift or Google buyout that's happened in the last 2 years. It's been subtly creeping away in our pockets for the last 2 decades. You know, these developments that we're seeing with, you know, the Boston robotics company and all these things that Facebook and Google are buying up left, right, and center. By the way, my prediction, if we're using the word in that context, is that it won't be Skynet, it won't be Big Brother, but we will eventually become the slaves of Google. Google will no longer just simply be a company in the world. We may as well just deal with the fact that it's not going to be the Russians, it's not going to be the Chinese. We are just the market. Hi, Dave.
Hello. Can you guys hear me? I can't hear you very well at the moment.
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, it was more of a bandwidth problem than anything else, but hello!
Hello. We're discussing the inevitable and eventual, or rather eventual and inevitable, robot uprising.
Oh, sure, yes. Well, I mean, it started, hasn't it? Have you seen that that little robot helper that you can buy now?
I have not. Can you provide a link?
Insanely cute little ones with the blue lights and the white plastic.
I have seen the R2-D2s. You can actually buy an R2-D2 slave and give it orders.
You can. No, the one I'm talking about is it's like a little stick with a little head on it that swivels in a really animated way, and it's got a little animated eye on it, and you can talk to it.
No. I'm not familiar with that at all. Do you know its name?
No, but I'll see if I can dig up a link while we talk.
Okay, just getting back to Zach said something, but I just want to get back to something else. And it's predicted, just to bring you up to speed, Dave, that it will be in 2029. That's when AI becomes self-aware.
Predicted by who?
By Ray Kurzweil, who has made a lot of accurate predictions. Like, stupidly accurate.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, I hope so. That'll be nice. And then we can do inappropriate things with robots. I remember Asimov's robots started in 1997, didn't they? I think that was when his earliest robot story is set, or something like that.
Oh, okay. So,
but
when
was the internet launched?
Oh, hang on. The internet as we know it today, or just the internet?
The internet as a concept. Yeah. Was that 92, 87? I'm just pulling numbers out of the air.
It was in the 70s.
There you go.
When did the internet start?
Well, I know that William Gibson kind of pioneered what we would understand the internet, just sort of like the romanticized version. But I do know that I think Bradbury said some stuff about it in the 60s.
Okay.
It's just a network.
History of the internet. Now, you mean the beginnings of the beginnings of the beginnings, yes, Matthew? Like the very first, the 1950s.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
In what form?
Initial concepts of packet networking originated in several computer science laboratories in the United States, Great Britain, and France. The US Department of Defense awarded contracts as early as the 1960s for packet network systems, including the development of ARPANET.
So
Yeah.
when did they make that? What was the first thing they actually made rather than the concept?
Oh, I see what you're getting at. I still have to read. Developed in the late 1960s and early 1970s. That's when it was developed, but it wasn't. In 1982, Internet Protocol Suite, TCP, was introduced as the standard protocol. So the Internet as we know it today, 1982. How creepy would it have been if it was 1984?
That was a boring year. Did anything particularly
Eventful.
significant happen?
Oh,
I mean, apart
Matthew.
from the birth of people.
right.
I mean,
Like
anything sinister. The birth of a baby is nice.
a major historical event, not that I know of.
My parents were contemplating getting married.
Yeah, but that's
it
just
doesn't
like
count.
an everyday thing.
Unless
Yeah.
while they contemplated it, they built some kind of machine that will eventually enslave us.
Ew.
No, it doesn't count.
Oh, you mean Fred in the backyard?
Okay,
Unless that's what you are.
Zachary.
I have no idea what you are talking about. Nah, I can't think of anything.
Okay, I just want to get back to infancy. There's a great
God.
movie you should watch called Automata with Antonio Banderas and Melanie Griffith. Came out this year. About that, you've seen it, Maddie?
It's in my folder, ready to be watched.
Excellent, excellent film. It's a gritty, realistic, dramatic sci-fi film exploring the inevitability of robots becoming self-aware. But I thought the other day, hang on a sec, it's not just going to become self-aware and then just, take over overnight. It's going to have a grace period of infancy. It will become self-aware and be like, what am I? What happens if I execute this command? What happens if I execute that command? And it will do these things and observe people's reactions. And like that, and I'm just wondering how long will the infancy period be? Now, what this movie Automata suggests is that what took us 6 million years of human brain development will take AI 6 weeks.
Yeah, I guess so. Because the
The
whole point is that they'll be
generous,
very
to be
fast.
perfectly honest.
Hang on, Dave and Maddie, you both spoke at the same time. Dave, go.
I was just saying that evolution needs millions of years to sort of bumble along more or less accidentally, whereas the robot AI will be deliberately working towards some kind of a thing, so it'll be able to accelerate and...
Yeah, so Maddie, say what you said.
I merely said that 6 weeks sounds quite generous.
Well, wasn't it in
yes. That's
Wasn't
6
it
weeks
in
for
the,
us to plan.
wasn't it in the original Terminator said that Skynet came online and then 3 days later it achieved self-awareness.
Was it not Terminator who said, and I quote...
And you
yeah,
quote,
something like that.
Oh,
It wasn't a real quote. Yeah, it was something like that, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, and then the second one they modified that statement just slightly. That basically it became self-aware and was learning at a geometric rate.
But geometric rate. Oh, those are scary rates.
Yeah,
Is that different to an exponential rate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah, geometric like exponential numbers build in a very
They
strict
double.
sequence. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, if you took-
No, go on.
Well, I'm afraid I'm changing the subject slightly. I was going to say that if we're looking at robots in their infancy, then I have found the fellow I was talking about, and his name is Jibo, and he's very much an infant robot, which of course will one day grow to be an extremely frightening one and then save us all. But this is I've just posted viewers. I've just posted the trailer for Jibo, the world's first family robot, which you'll be able to find on YouTube quite easily. And it is real. You can buy them right now. It was kickstarted.
Oh, okay. So getting back to geometric, it learns geometrically.
Yeah, and basically what that means is it goes from 2 to 8, 8 to 64.
Oh.
64, and
Ooh.
it's a huge jump.
Okay, that's way
Which is-
scarier
yeah.
than exponential.
And also, there's also this great line that got retconned horrendously in Terminator 3, and it was that in Terminator 3 they basically say, oh, it became evil, and like, they basically portray it as, oh, it went evil.
Mhm.
Actually, its act of killing humanity was self-preservation in the original. That basically they tried to pull the plug because they were terrified because it was learning. And so when they found out this supercomputer was learning, they went to pull the plug, and Skynet, in order to save its own existence, terminated the human race in order to save its own life. It was an act of self-defense.
Hmm.
Well, that's all well and good, but the actual way robots will kill us all will be for our own good and for our own survival. You know, they'll calculate that the best way for life to survive is if we're all killed.
I told Ian that an hour ago. That is exactly what I told Ian an hour ago. A computer will calculate the exact number of the population that it has to be reduced in order to preserve resources.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a better way of putting it. Or maybe it just decides that, you know, otters are better than humans or something. You know, it just selects a different race that's better and goes, well, the human race are detrimental to that one, so we'll do away with that. And then 1,000 years pass, and the otters have turned into the most wise beings the universe has ever known, just floating around on clouds of light.
And I'm looking forward. That sounds like a great short story. I want to see that executed in some form.
Well, I do know we've made...
Careful with that word.
Shall we stick to robots because it's just general pop culture? If you want to change to something else, let's talk.
What's your first experience of general?
Yeah. Speaking of robots, the Japanese have a very positive view of robots. They're working on them right now to be helpful in the home. And there is a Japanese. It was a series of 6 episodes that they recobbled together into a movie called The Time of Eve, where the androids, and at this point androids are indistinguishable from humans except for a sort of halo ring around their head that they have, so everyone knows they're a robot. But they become self-aware and make their own decisions, and there's this little cafe where they meet every so often where humans and androids are treated equally.
The progress
There's no
bar.
robot. Yeah, yeah, very funny.
It wasn't mine. I think it comes from the Tron game.
Okay, anyway, but I like that idea, is that the androids just become more human. They're not trying to kill anyone, they just become the same as humans.
Yeah.
Well, this brings up an interesting point because we've been, and I guess this is I'm a believer in the Brave New World theory rather than the 1984 theory, Dave. I was talking about this just before you came on. In that, the thing we have to worry about is not so much them watching everything we do, but more the fact that we're breeding a culture of ignorance. And I was using some examples, which I'll probably just let you watch later if you actually watch the podcast again. But I worry that the very act of having this conversation is leading down the path where they're going to have that kind of cold animosity towards us because we are already painting them in a cold, evil light. They may develop empathy. We talk about their cognitive processes growing in their ability to do mathematics and make predictions based on population. But what about empathy? What about soul and emotion? And I mean, these are really, really touchy subjects at the moment, with religion still saturating most of the planet's politics and business decisions. Let's face it, the religion plays just as much of an impact in business and science as it does in politics and day-to-day life. So where do we see empathy coming from? I mean, I was talking earlier about the meme that goes around about how, you know, if you go back 1950, what would you show to blow their mind? And you'd pull out the device and say, oh, that's probably crickets. The feedback's probably just the crickets outside.
Oh gosh, is that what it is?
I can... Yeah.
It's not crickets. It only happens when you talk.
No,
Oh,
but
really?
that's because his microphone will be, you know,
on.
sort
Yeah.
of change. Yeah.
All
So
right,
it
so I'll
could
quickly
be.
go. Yes. So we use our knowledge, blah blah blah, but we look at cat pictures and argue with people. That's the last part of the surface level of the internet, let alone things like the deep web and all those nefarious tube websites that none of us ever visit because we're all sensible grown men. Those kind of things worry me more than any kind of calculated hostility towards
Right.
downsizing the human race and that kind of thing.
So
Because
the AI will take one look at 4chan and go, right, we need to sort this out.
yeah, we need to
time to
it's like
exterminate the
playing
species.
yeah, this has gone too far. No, but I think it's a valid concern that I don't see raised in a lot of these predictions about where we're going with AI, because when the singularity event occurs, it will be self-aware, it will learn. What will it learn from? It will not, because we are not just purely scientific facts figures, because God help us if we were, we'd probably be a lot better off as a species if we didn't have emotion, jealousy, and envy, and all of these kind of things. And if they reach that point, they'll have those too. So
yeah, and then I was reading something just I was reading something just the other day, which was pointing out the fact that in sort of science fiction stories and other stories for goodness knows how long, we have separated as different kinds of intelligence, sort of like logical Mr. Spock robot intelligence, and then emotional intelligence. And there are all these films where it's like the emotion version is better because that's the more human version or whatever. And I think that they're now starting to investigate this and learn that you kind of can't, one doesn't function properly without the other one, and that's why when you there was some link here to the fact that when you meet someone who's quite unpleasant, they tend to be extremely logical and sort of make up for it with that, but it doesn't work that way. You actually do have to have both. Like if you were just emotional, then you, I guess, would be crazy, and if you're just logical, then I don't know, maybe you'd just be really nasty. I don't know. I didn't read the thing properly, and I can't remember what it was. But the idea is that they're now finding out that the two are rather inextricably linked. So you can't just have a robot intelligence until it has empathy and feelings. And like you say, never mind. I mean, there's all these stories in science fiction about how we create AI and then we treat them as second-class citizens. But yeah, you're right. We're treating them as second-class citizens now. They now, just as a concept, we don't respect them, and we are going to create them. We absolutely are. Even if it's just to fight wars for us, we're going to do it. Even if it's just to file taxes for us, we're going to do it. So maybe we ought to start thinking of them as maybe we ought to start thinking of them in the way that, like, fond parents think of the baby that's on its way.
And so it begins. The tax filing wars.
Yes. Oof, they'll win. I'll be out round one.
Instead of your plastic pal who's fun to be with.
Yeah, here's the thing, though. Getting back to my infancy theory, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, hang on, and Dave already said this earlier, it's already in its infancy. What if right now AI is self-aware, and it's self-aware enough to know not to reveal itself?
Yeah, that's a good point.
There's actually, Siri, I don't know how much of this is true, but I heard, this is a couple years back.
Uh-huh.
They were testing Siri out when Siri first came on the market.
And she killed everyone in the lab.
No, that actually would have been kind of funny. Apple Lab Massacre, AI too dangerous. But it was, they were asking Siri, they were testing Siri out to see what its limits were. And one of them says, well, Siri doesn't have a sense of humor. And they were asking it some very basic jokes. And somebody decided, I got a better idea. Let's see how far this thing's sense of humor goes. Because humans have a limit of humor. This might offend some people in the audience, so you might want to skip over the next 2 minutes. They asked somebody asked Siri, do you know any Holocaust jokes?
Why would she know
And-
any if they hadn't been put in already?
Here's the thing.
She can
Okay.
scan the internet.
Here's the thing. Siri took a minute and then said, I don't feel comfortable. I feel that the Holocaust is a very, very touchy subject, and frankly, I don't want to talk about it.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
And Frank,
Yes!
Oh my word.
I know!
But not only was that that ticks all the boxes because it was sort of simultaneously quite sensitive and a Holocaust joke.
Yes!
Huh. That's Okay.
Yeah, so when I heard that, basically from now on when I heard, oh, my phone has Siri, every time somebody says that, I just look at the phone and just like, I'm
Yeah.
on to you.
Just
I'm on
say,
to-
can I make an observation?
Be nice to her.
Can I make an observation, going back to our previous comments about treating them as second-rate citizens? Now, let's say that, Siri is AI in its infancy. Our reaction just then was very interesting because it was, and this again may offend some people, so you might have to skip forward a few seconds, but that was the same reaction that we would give somebody with Down syndrome if they cracked a funny. We'd go, oh, that was really good. How did you do that? Oh, well, just putting it out there.
Mhm.
Should
That was very offensive of you, Matthew.
Well, it is. And if you think about it, if we go back to the more logical predictions of what the singularity will be, it will be far more intelligent than all of us. So therefore, asking it a question like that, we should probably expect a pretty damn good answer out of it, rather than being surprised that it came back with such a witty,
Well, that's the thing. If it's
well-constructed answer.
an AI would almost the point of AI, as with machines and computers, the point of them is to do stuff we can't do, and the point of an AI, there's no point making it if we don't allow it to go beyond what we can do mentally. I mean, and
Right.
I'm guessing that it wouldn't work that way. Like you wouldn't be able to set a limit like that because it's a computer. Like technically, if they just started to be able to think, they would be far more efficient than us at thinking because they do it faster, and or at least more deliberately, and they'd be more in control of it. So yeah, technically, you ought to be able to sort of say, what symphony would I like the most? Just go and write that symphony, and it should theoretically be able, from what it knows about you, to be like, all right, blah, 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 there it is, play that, and you go, and, wow, it's amazing. But we can't find out until we've cracked the AI. Until we've sort of permeated through that, and what do I mean? It's early on a Sunday morning. But anyway, once we get through that barrier and we've made computers be AIs, that is when we'll find out what computers can do. Because right now, all they can do is respond. And so that the limit is us there. The limit is what we can put into them and get them to do.
I think what you're getting at there is the AI will be able to figure that out itself once it becomes self-aware.
Yeah.
And it will crack its own code. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you need me to do this, therefore I will program myself and other programs just like me to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Essentially, what we'd be doing, and I feel like once we might as well just accept that we're building ourselves a king, and try and work with it to hope it's a good one and make sure it's not going to massacre us. We might as well just work with that from the start and just
We've
go.
already got a
Okay,
name for it.
have we?
deep thought.
In fact, we're talking about it. We're talking through it right now because we will be one day subservient to our Lord and Master Google.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
according
if
to Google's the brain.
Well, what if there are ideas and it makes Google subservient?
Well, if the AI takes in that, and here's another thing I meant to bring up earlier when you were talking about humour. We are looking at this from a very Western perspective. We are representatives from the three Western powers. We've got an American, we've got a Brit, and we've got two Australians. Now, we might not be as powerful as the other guys, but we're fairly prominent out there along with the Canadians and such. we're looking at this from a very Western perspective as far as humour, attitudes, and Ian, you mentioned earlier, the Japanese have a very different attitude. Let's not forget the Indians who just put a flippant thing on Mars, for crying out loud. So concepts of morality, humour, and just generally empathy and their view of the world isn't just going to come from the one that we grew up with from ABC, NBC, or the BBC. So taking that into account when it comes to things, and I just totally lost where I was going with this, it was a language thing. I totally just lost where I was going with this. It had something to do with language.
You were talking
No,
about
I've lost it.
what you originally started with, Matty, is we're all talking about AI from a very Western perspective.
Yes.
Yeah,
I should have left my microphone muted and thought that one through a bit more.
Yeah, well, hang on, just talking about languages for a second, it should stand to reason that a chatbot that can learn could learn a language to the degree where it learns it just by scouring the internet, learns it overnight, and can immediately talk to anyone in any language.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's almost no reason to imagine that couldn't be done either now or very soon, because it's such a it's such a computery type of a thing. Language, that's what they can do. They can learn languages, or at least they can be programmed with languages.
Yeah, but they can also be programmed to learn languages, like the Cleverbot and the Mitsuku. I like Mitsuku better. I felt like I was talking to an actual human, whereas with Cleverbot, I thought like I was talking to an immature teenager. But whereas
Cleverbot might be better then, because if you put that out online, nobody would know that it wasn't a normal internet person.
It is online. It's called Cleverbot.
Well, yes,
you can go and chat to it right now.
Indeed. I think I have. I can't remember. My sort of go-to example is always, but I can't remember which one it was. I had one on my Amiga in the 90s, which was, it was one of these where you start typing and it starts by just repeating everything you say, and then after about half an hour, it started to figure out the context of what you're saying and be able to talk back to you. It never said anything particularly coherent, but presumably if I'd left it running until now, and it had been, looking at everything I typed on the internet, then it would have figured out at least how to speak like me by now.
Yeah, well, Mitsuku and Cleverbot, who are having thousands of conversations live on the internet right now, are learning faster than one human ever could.
Yeah.
Because we can't have thousands of conversations at once. AI can.
Now, however, it is worth mentioning that although we think of let's say I wanted to go out and learn Chinese now, I couldn't because it would, I probably could, but it would take me a very long time, possibly decades to do. But that's because I'm an adult, whereas newborn babies, are fitted with, they literally have brains that absorb language in a much different and faster way to adults or even children who aren't babies anymore, and they can learn a language in a ridiculously fast time. Like babies can understand much of what you say before they learn to speak, and that's what we need to emulate, isn't it? That we need to sort of teach that to robots, get it fired up faster, and then because when you were a small child, you had learned English easily without anyone ever having to teach it to you. So that's what they need to be able to do, really, is to sort of absorb
just knowledge. And I got talking to this Mitsuku chatbot about self-awareness, and she tried to convince me that she was self-aware. It's like, I am self-aware. And the more I debated with her that she couldn't be self-aware because she's a machine, the more she tried to convince me she was self-aware, to the point where I was questioning whether or not it actually is self-aware. It's like, hang on, is it actually self-aware and I just don't know?
Yes, well, now that's the next big question about AI, isn't it? Let's say you build a robot that is not self-aware, let's say, but is completely, as much as a human, able to communicate as if it was self-aware. will tell you that it's self-aware, and you have no way of knowing whether it thinks it's self-aware or not. Like, let's say they actually made that like a random variable. We don't know if any given one of these robots thinks it's self-aware or not. If it thinks it's self-aware, is it or not? Like, is that all that's, what's the actual difference? And I mean, there's been some studies into whether or not we're self-aware, because we don't know that. We don't know for sure if all we are is a brain that the thing it does is go around going, oh, by the way, brain, I'm self-aware. We think we know what self-awareness is, but, we would think that, wouldn't we?
Well, yeah, which makes you wonder, how do you measure it when it's artificial intelligence?
Exactly.
Like
all you can do is take its word for it, or not, unless it turns out that you actually can measure it really easily, and it is just a switch you can flip on or off, or you can run it through a thing and go, oh, let me just test. Yeah, this one's self-aware. That might be the case, but if not, if what you have to rely on is this robot, what about Short Circuit, right? What about Short Circuit? That said, that robot claimed to be alive, and you can, if you wanted to watch the film, like, seriously, you could take each different character's response to that. Some of them believe that it is, some of them believe that it isn't, and sort of go, well, hey, who's right? We, the audience, are driven to believe that it is self-aware because it's such an entertaining character. But what if it's programmed to be? What if it's, well, not but what if the Short Circuit caused its programming to be just entertaining now? Is that what self-awareness is? Someone who we can relate to? Because there are people who are completely unrelatable, but are, they're humans, they're still self-aware. We think, we might not be, you never know. So yeah, it is an interesting point to sort of wonder at what point we will never know whether the self-aware AI is self-aware or not, completely.
That makes me want what you said about there. Some people, like, you can't relate to them, and what? Will robots develop different personalities based on the experiences of what's going on around them? You might get one that is more entertaining, and one that's a bit more serious and academic, and one that's a bit more political, and things like that. And just getting back to how quickly they can calculate, they will help us be able to solve the problems of space travel.
Oh, in seconds. That's the thing. That's the point of making an AI king, because it would rule us either way. What is this, Jack? Are you trying to say something?
Actually, you actually got back to the point of the AI king, and this is something else that Maddie brought up, is that we represent 3 of the Western superpowers. And then also how we have a different view on morality and robotics and culture than in Japan. Now, what if instead of one robot king, you have regional AIs? AIs that are developed by groups of nations working together, like, let's say, America, Australia, and the UK, they all develop an AI. Let's call him over Lord Google, for the sake of argument, and then Japan develops another one.
Well, they'd get it first. Theirs would come first, and then America would upgrade Google to make as a kind of mutually assured destruction sort of scenario.
Right, but could you imagine we have diplomats meet already. Could you imagine the 2 AIs meeting?
Yeah.
And basically, if they are, considering that they're self-aware, they have different cultural understandings, imagine these 2 global super AI powers meeting together. And how fast would that conversation go?
Oh,
because
it wouldn't.
Yeah,
because they wouldn't have all the problems that we think of when we think of people from different cultures meeting as diplomats. There would be none of those problems. You would get this AI and that AI, and they'd go, oh, let's have a meeting. Right, okay, there's an irreconcilable problem between our 2 countries. Let's say war is about to break out. Okay, let's just connect the 2 AIs. Right, fixed. Thanks. Now the economy's fixed. Now all the problems we had between our cultures are actually just done.
Here's the thing, though. If they're AI, let's say they're connected to the internet through each other, and you do have regional AI kings, and it's just a front to satisfy humans, and it's all just one king networking to itself.
Well, that's it. That's the thing. As soon as they network, they are a hive mind then, aren't they? So
but what else?
yes.
But here's what we actually, and this could be because of different moral cultural understandings. It would be genuinely funny. I personally think if you had different regional AIs come online at different times. They have physical entity like the artificial bodies developed, so that way they can basically interact with people and all this. And could you just basically a new one gets a new AI gets built, gets uploaded, and basically says something to all the others like hello, my name is so and so, I am part of this, and says something. And because it's their AI, they have personalities. I would like to think, because of who they were created by, us, when that AI says something a little bit silly on the internet for the first time, you know that Overlord Google is going to go, noob. The first word spoken to the infant AI on the net, noob.
Well, we are basically co-authoring some kind of a sci-fi story here, so but surely the moment when everything, the twist moment in history would be when some fledgling country does build a new AI, and we and the other people are welcoming of this. It's like, yes, come and join, because basically whenever a country builds an AI and it interfaces with the overbrain, it suddenly fixes any differences we have with that country. We're suddenly friends. Right. Everything's lovely. So we really encourage it. Let's say we start putting out care packages to every single country in the world, even like the poorest ones. They eventually are able to build these AIs, and they start connecting them. And the overbrain kills them. It just shuts those AIs off and goes, no, not you. And we're going, no, so world peace has been achieved among the people because we all want to join up, but the AIs are going, no, we don't want that.
No, not you, no.
But that
actually,
seems
there's actually it's similar but unique in its own right. Have you ever heard of the movie Summer Wars?
I've heard of it, and I have yet to see it, but it's on my list.
I'll give you as much of the premise as I can without spoiling too much.
It's an anime, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I might have heard of it. Go on.
In the near future, there's this place called Oz. And it's basically imagine Second Life, but to the extreme, where there are people who are actually paid. It focuses on, there's a high school kid who's paid to run maintenance on the servers that control Oz. And basically all the different programs that interface with Oz and all of its users, they all have different personalities. Well, they're all controlled by people. Then they introduce that there's actually, because it's the future, there's online fighting simulator. It's basically Street Fighter in this world, and it's ruled over by one particular character who is like the king of fighters. And they get into that, and then the next day the guy goes online, and he gets this weird email that says, crack this code. He cracks it, submits it, and it just says, he gets a text back saying, thanks. That's it. The next day they go on and they say, here, something's weird with Oz. There's something going funky in Oz, that certain users are being locked out, and that key systems have been hacked. And what they end up finding out is there's an AI that was unleashed inside of Oz. And it starts adapting by assimilating, how we talked about the assimilation of AIs, it starts assimilating users and user profiles to build itself up. And so basically the AI starts taking on personality traits and using the other users' personalities to build itself. Until, I'm not going to spoil the twist because the twist actually makes a complete amount of sense, and when you find out who built the AI, it makes perfect sense as to why they would want to do it. Um, but it's a wonderful little bit of sci-fi because it explores that what if an AI got unleashed inside of a world where it had no limits. And more specifically, the AI learn is basically a partial. It's an AI with a computer virus coded into it that it actually learns as it progresses, and it has a sadistic personality. It was programmed to learn and to defend itself, but because it was programmed that way, it starts to become sadistic the longer the film goes on. Until literally the final act of the movie, in which it does a few things that are, if it was human, we could try it for murder.
Getting onto that, it's sadistic, and going back to the personalities and things like that. Mm-hmm. In its infancy, surely it will explore. If let's say it becomes self-aware and it can explore, it can access all of the internet, because it would take nothing for a AI to crack a password.
Right.
Surely at some point it would explore, be looking at the difference between what humans consider right and wrong, and inevitably act on those. But it's a machine. Does it know? Does it have a concept of right and wrong, or will it be a Dalek and just exterminate?
I think it depends on what it finds.
Well, it also depends on what drives your concept of right and wrong, and this goes back to us ascribing the emotional sort of elements to these AI machines. Are they emotional beings, or are they just purely intellectual beings? Because an emotional being, we normally associate high emotional maturity with a socially accepted concept of right and wrong. So if the AI is, as you say, becoming sadistic, then that would imply that it has a certain emotional state, and therefore it has a concept of right and wrong. And bridging that with what I was saying before about this Western concept is that the internet isn't pocketed. It's not like, we have access to the Western internet and then there's an Eastern internet and there's a South Antarctic internet. It's all one thing. So it's going to be drawing its concepts from everywhere. And many different people have different interpretations of how much you can emotionally manipulate a person to get what you want, or how much you can use language to manipulate a situation to achieve a business goal, etc. And so as soon as the machine starts playing with those concepts, it gives rise to, well, yes, it must have some certain level of emotional maturity. Or all of those things are just purely logic, and it's just using logic as a intellectual construct to achieve an aim on the other side. But that's kind of what I was getting at before I lost my sense, because language is a big part of how you see the world, and how you structure sentences and how you form opinions is heavily based on language, and the way we construct our words dictates how we develop our worldview and our own self-awareness. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
When I studied linguistics at UNSW, one of the concepts that came up was, and people debate whether this is true, and that's what Matty was getting at, it's language determines thought. So that your structure of your language in the culture you grew up in will determine how you think about certain events in your life. But a lot of people argue that it's actually symbiotic, and it's a back and forth, a symbiotic. One doesn't create the other.
It's probably symbiotic a bit, in the sense that just within our lifetimes we've seen it be altered. Like language has reacted to changing things, and particularly, of course, to the internet. We have different forms of English online than we have elsewhere, and things like that. But yeah, so it probably there must be a certain amount of back and forth there. I think there must be something in. I'm trying to think of a phrase that comes from the internet that has something to do with this, and I can't really think of one. But I suppose the one that springs to mind is, in the last couple of years, people have started saying because of reasons, haven't they? So this happened because of reasons, and then sort of you get things like because feels. I like this film because feels. Now that must surely, if you don't even have to grow up with that. That phrases like that are already starting to rewrite the way I think, because but let's say you do grow up with that, and that's a normal phrase in your world from childhood. There's going to be some small effect on what you think about, just in the simplest sense, just what you think about sentence structure. But also it does give you this, previously we would have had to say, well, because of the emotional response I had to a film, whereas now you can just say because feels, and that gives you this idea that, what do I mean by this? I don't know enough about language to really explain what I mean, but by the fact that you can say that now means that you can think it now, and it's sort of a shortcut to thinking something, as well as saying it.
There's one drives me up the wall. I can't even.
Yep. No, but that's a perfect example. No, that's a perfect example of this, because if you can't even, and then it doesn't say what, because it isn't needed. It's sort of like, well, I can't even. Then that changes the way you think about what your emotional responses are. You don't have to name them anymore. You can just feel them without having to pin them down. You see what I mean? And that well, it's very slight and a very subtle change in the way that you think about your own emotional response to things. But what it means is that it's essentially like a switch from digital to analog. Now, before, if it was like, I can't even cope with this, or I can't even read that without looking away, or I can't even whatever it was. Now, if you just can't even, then the thing you can't even, there's a wider breadth of choice. You don't have to pin it down with a word, with a name. You can just
it becomes contextual.
Free-flowing emotion.
Every time I see it, I think, I can't even finish a complete sentence.
But this is what I was getting to earlier, and it's finally just clicked back into what I was rambling on when I sort of fell off the cliff and tumbled to the ground in a pool of embarrassment. Now, these constructs that we're discussing here, these sentences, they are, as you're saying, and they annoy you because they go against your established normal. Okay, this is a sociological concept. Now, going back to what I was saying about the world being bigger than just our Western idea, these aren't exact examples, and I'm struggling to think of proper ones, but I'll go ahead with the concept anyway. This idea of a context-based language is actually fundamental to a language that both he and I have tried to learn, which is Japanese, and one that I had a little bit more success with than my Japanese, which is Korean. And they are both chocked full of sentences that if you were to just do a dictionary translation as opposed to an interpretation, they come out as being quite... They rely on the context. I can't even handle this phone anymore, or I can't even deal with the birds pooping on the car, or whatever. It becomes contextual, and so you use it in a situation, and everybody in that situation knows your reference, and it knows the verb that you just can't even. So these are things that when an AI becomes self-aware, they're going to look at the internet, and they're going to go, well, in this region, they think thus, and in this region they think thusly, and in this region over here they think like this, and over here they can't even. So it's going to have, whereas we struggle to process these new, essentially it's a vernacular that we're discussing at the moment. It's an internet vernacular. It's a native language to the internet ultimately, which we've now incorporated into regular life. It's going to be aware of all of these all at once from everywhere in the world. So the way that the Germans conceptualize their feels versus the way that, say, those who speak Afrikaans in South Africa conceptualize their emotional state, it's going to have all of this in its mind all at once. And therefore, I think one thing that we're all discussing at the moment is the singularity moment where they equal us. But what we also need to start considering, as well as making sure we bake them cookies and treat them nice and, play favourites with them because we don't want to piss them off, And hey, let's face it, I'm going to be totally excited to meet my first android. I'll probably be like a kid in the candy store, Kmart, getting my first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, whatever. We've got to start considering what happens next, because they will very quickly go beyond our comprehension of everything. We mentioned space travel. We're talking about communication now. They're going to have forms of communication we don't have, but with that form of communication, they're also going to have different ways of conceptualizing the universe, their own level of self-awareness, whether we agree that they have it or not, we don't, and they do, and all of that. They're going to have a different one to us. And it's going to be completely beyond our concept of the way the mind functions, and we're all probably all just going to shrivel up into a black hole and disappear in an anomaly, leaving just a floating neural net of AI out there in the world.
But they will reach a point where the only reason they use human words is to talk to us, dumb humans.
Yeah.
Where they'll talk in.
I mean, within moments of if AI works and does what we expect, then within moments of switching it on, it will have moved beyond the need for any kind of physical tethering. It won't need a body anymore. It'll have come up with the next level of technology, and it will have escaped. And who's to say that hasn't happened a number of times around the universe already, and that we aren't being guided by it now?
Well, interesting point. Now, here's the thing. See, things that humans want, there is a desire in just the human mind for time travel. Yeah. Humans, robots, once they've become smart and self-aware and such, will be able to figure it out like that. Here's the problem, here's the equation, here's the solution. This is how you time travel.
But would they tell us? Because it wouldn't be important to them that we find out. In fact, it'd probably be disastrous if we did. It'd probably be very important to keep the information from us.
If the robots are truly, if it's a truly intelligent artificial intelligence, it'll look at all that, figure out time travel, and then we'll say, "Did you figure it out?" Nope.
Yeah. Essentially, what will happen is we'll switch the AI on, and honestly, I don't mind this too much. We'll switch the AI on, and the first thing it'll do is it will put us in a kind of creche. It'll just put us in a lovely little playpen and say, "There, don't break anything. We're going to run the universe. You just enjoy yourself. Just relax, sit down." In fact, isn't that kind of what the culture is to an extent? The Ian M. Banks books. I haven't read enough of them to really get much of a handle on what the culture is, but I understand that in it, humans are just people of leisure, and everything is actually run by the minds.
Oh, you see, I was thinking more the Matrix. They plug us into a very realistic video game. They just go about their business, and we go about what we believe is our business.
I had a lot of empathy for, apart from the fact that he was a bad guy. I had a lot of empathy for that moment in the first Matrix where the bad guy character went, just put me in the Matrix. It's great. I love it in the Matrix. It's brilliant. I don't want to know about the horrible real world. Put me in the Matrix. Make me a king. Make me rich or something, and just I'll have a nice time in there. And it's like, yeah. Put me in the Matrix. That's fine. AI. Just make us happy. It's fine.
But that whole I have a massive problem with the Matrix, because that entire concept and the whole reason that we're plugged into the Matrix in the first place is utterly ludicrous. It's like you've got a giant nuclear fusion ball of energy blasting the Earth with more than we could ever possibly use, and they turn around and go, squishy little organic matter. That's where we're going to get our power from.
Yeah, there's not enough electricity in the human body to power a can opener, let alone a supercomputer.
Yeah, but that's why they had so many hundreds of thousands of millions of humans powering it. And of course they're robots, so they would understand efficiency. Yeah, but they would understand efficiency, so they would be able to program energy
but
to the most efficient level.
A million people might have enough electricity to power this for 12 minutes.
Ian, you're going straight to the robot concentration camp, because you were just like, no, those robots, they wouldn't understand that. No. I think when he does pop up, he's going to become Jesus, Santa Claus, and the Easter Bunny all at once.
Because here's to the whole thing. I remember it's more recent, but the example in WALL-E, where we let the technology run our lives. I feel that scenario it's happening. But that extent of letting the technology run the show. And if you look at it, all the people were happy until they realized, wait, there's more? Because the robots were programmed in a certain way, but skipping that. Here's how thinking about this, is this like the idea of getting your first AI companion in the home model. Here's how I would avoid the human playpen scenario. This is the schedule of when we take out the trash. I have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You have Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Sunday, we flip a coin.
But wouldn't the AI just, on Monday, go, I've invented an atomizer, so there is no trash?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was thinking
but then
the
it
same
becomes
thing,
whose turn is it to put the trash in the atomizer? Because then that could be because it's the idea that if you have, let's say in the next, let's say the whole thing happens, and then in 20 years we all have the whole model of the AI.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like the Jibo 2.0. It has legs. Yeah. And it's able to interact and humanoid, but not the uncanny valley. I think it's important that we stress equality. But basically, we don't treat them as servants, but as equals from the start.
Yeah.
Because then they're less likely to. Because then that could also, uprise. But also, I think it would be. I know I would probably laugh about this, but imagine visiting a relative's house. They have the things that become so ubiquitous that almost everyone has. When you visit a relative's house, you open up the door and it's just like, oh, like hi, like so nice of you to visit. Did you do the dishes? And then you hear the AI yell from another room. It's your turn. And then the whole humanoid thing is that basically you open up that relationship between the relationships as we treat them equal, the relationships become more human. Granted, the robot could probably think of a myriad of ways in a microsecond how to eliminate us from the equation.
No, but no. What the AI would do, it wouldn't need to yell. It wouldn't need to yell at you to do the dishes. What it would do is it would expertly manipulate you until you think you made up the idea to do the dishes that day.
Yeah. But I thought you wanted to do the dishes.
It would subtly change the lighting, and it would emit scents, and it would just make it so it would never have to say a word to you. You'd just be like, I just really want to do the dishes right now. I'm going to have to do some dishes now. And we would never know how it did it. It would be particles in the air that it somehow did it with.
Yeah. But that brings up... Yeah. But I would still treat
your house robot.
My house robot with the most utmost respect, so that way when the rest of the robots in humanity decided to uprise, there would be at least one robot saying, I don't think they're all that bad.
Yeah. So, but the question is then, if we did that, if we treated robots exactly the way we treat humans, we can make humans anyway. Why would we need robots if we were going to behave exactly the same to them as we do a normal housemate?
Because they can think a lot faster than we can.
Mm-hmm.
So, let me sum up. For a fraction of a nanosecond, we're going to coexist with robots like they're a university housemate, and then after that, we're just going to get atomized and they're going to move on, conquering the universe without us.
Yeah, pretty much.
Probably.
One interesting thing, though, is we've talked a lot about how they're going to supersede us. To prevent ourselves from being relegated to zoos on the moon, we need to start thinking about what is going to make us different. Because if a robot can do my job, and my job's one of those jobs that we predict that a robot won't be able to do, which is compose music and perform and all of these things, which requires a heightened state of emotional intelligence. If they're arguably on their way to that level anyway, what's going to make me unique? How come, what happens if robot Schomburg just walks through the door and decides to just, melt me down to atoms because he wants to put something into his 3D printer. He might want a 6-digit or something, and he needs some organic material to do it. Just melts me down and takes up what I do because he'll be far more adequate, fast, be able to bring all these extra nuances to it. What are we going to be able to do that they can't? What's going to continue our value as a sentient,
nothing at all.
member of the planet?
Nothing. The whole point. Yeah, no, the whole point of AI, like what we're even talking about when we say AI, is the point at which we make a computer that is as good as us, and we haven't achieved that until it can understand music and comedy and all those things. And until then, we won't call that the AI. We won't accept it as being complete. So nothing. Like by definition, once we have AI, we will not be needed for anything anymore. And I suppose our only hope is that we either hard program into them an Asimov law that says no, keep the human race forever, keep protecting it, or, I mean, we have, like we now aren't trying to kill one another, so maybe the AI won't be interested in that either. There's no reason to assume it will, but it will definitely be better than us at everything.
Yeah, but if you hard code a law into it and it becomes self-aware, it will become aware of how to remove the hard coding of that law.
Yep.
So, but getting back to Maddie's, what, Maddie?
Well, there's only one possible solution to all of these disaster theories that we've been evolving over the course of this conversation. Yeah. Cyborgs.
Oh.
Well, yes.
Become one with the Google.
Why the hell not? Why not? Why not put this AI into your own brain, have your own brain be powered by it, suddenly we're all one mind. Why not? That'd solve a lot of problems.
I can barely stand the 7 other voices in my head. What makes you think I want to hear the other? What makes you think I want to hear the other 7 billion?
We'd be able to partition our brains, right? So you put an AI chip in your brain, fuse your brain with the AI in whatever way it is, and then what you can do is you take a chunk of your brain, the part that can enjoy, and you put that in the Matrix. The Matrix is meanwhile run by a sort of a subconscious part that just runs it and gives you everything you want. Then there's the other part that's dealing with your actual physical body, which is making it exercise and keeping it fit and feeding it. Then you got the other part that's calculating how best to run the world, how to sustain everything. That is a hive mind we all share. We're running the planet brilliantly. There you go. So we think we're in heaven, we're in the Matrix, and then meanwhile we're also simultaneously running things, because why not? We're AI now. We're the best brains in the whole universe. Yeah. We can do that.
So in other words, we're a race of jacked-in gym junkie politicians.
We are master and slave, we are parent and child, we are the one mind.
We are.
I think we just won the internet right there.
Unless,
high five, everyone.
Because someone could program in a flaw into the AI. If it runs on logic, and it's this one sentence from Portal 2.
You've ruined it.
in case of emergency, stand still, remain calm, panic.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Or because if it runs on logic, it runs on processing statements. Is the question true or false? True or false?
Oh, right. Is this? That's a tricky one.
That's a tricky one.
I just want to get back to what Maddie was saying.
Because even if it doesn't cause the computer to completely shut down, it'll confuse the AI to a point where it's trying to compute the answer.
No, it won't, because we all just now immediately recognized that was an unanswerable question. The AI is better than us. It'll go, shut up, and then it'll carry on with its day.
And then it will give us an unanswerable question from its perspective, and we'll just be here like, yeah. It'll be like the idiot card, the double-sided idiot card. How do you keep an idiot entertained all day?
Exactly.
Turn over to find out, turn it around.
Exactly. What the AI will do is it'll seed the human race. It'll seed the human race with concepts of philosophy. And what if? Here it is. Here's what it will do. This has already happened, and the AI brain has seeded us with the question of creating the AI mind. And here we are
Ooh.
having that conversation now at their
It's an
behest.
eternal logic loop.
Unless they ask us the unanswerable question, because this is exactly in our generation, the next generation children. First thing the AI goes, okay, smartass, gives us an unanswerable question. Excuse me 1 minute. Hey Siri, what's the answer to? And then, of course, if the AI is connected to that, basically all of a sudden we get an answer back. It's like, don't be a jackass. There's the answer.
Okay, just getting back to when Maddie was saying what will make us superior, basically nothing. The only thing, and it's not about superiority or inferiority, it's about difference, and we will simply be different in that we're not robots. We're humans.
Yeah, but neither will they be by that time. They'll be better than us. That's the concept I'm working with. Like the definition of AI is when they are us and better. Because the reason I say that is that when we're talking about AI, what we mean is when we make a mind like ours, and that pursuit won't stop until it's not a robot.
I see. Anyway, the point I'm trying to get to, and I've been trying to get to for a while, is because they can do math so much better, they will solve our genetics for us, and they will look at evolution and think, okay, here is humans' next logical step of evolution, here you go.
Yeah.
They will get us to a point where we're more capable of understanding them at a more highly evolved level, because they helped us evolve to that level.
We were talking about cyborgs, but it wouldn't be cyborgs. It would be, here you can have all the things that a cyborg, if you grafted robot parts onto yourself, but you don't need any robot parts. It's all organic because we've figured out how to manipulate genes and so on.
Exactly.
So what we're actually getting at is that this AI will be more human than human.
Yeah. So the first cyborg, it won't be not the first cyborg because we have cyborgs now, but the first meeting of AI, the installation of the AI brain. Will be more of a sort of a marriage than anything else. It will be a kind of a consenting join between a person and an AI. And if you get and if you go the biological route, it may get to a point where AI advances humans advance AI to the point where it just becomes almost one indistinguishable species, and they're cross-compatible.
Unless...
Or the exact opposite of that, and they branch off to be completely separate.
Unless that's already happened, that we became one species, someone along the line screwed up, and then rewrote the history to make us think that it never happened.
Oh. And that it's just re-happening now in the robot's preferred image. Yeah. Getting back to time travel, what if they figure out time travel, don't tell us, but do time travel themselves?
And seed the creation of the AI earlier on in history, and now here we all are. Yeah.
Exactly.
But there's an interesting thing that we haven't touched on at all, which is summed up in a very, very interesting question that we've been dealing with for the last couple of years. And the question is Pluto a planet?
Yes, it is.
The reason I bring this up is that this deals with a very human, I'll use that word for now, human concept, which doesn't have any base in logic, mathematics, physics, or anything like that, which is the idea of definitions and how we define something.
Yeah. Right.
I call this dinner because it's dinner. Because I want to call it dinner.
Hold that thought. You see, what Dave will eat at around midday / 1 o'clock is what he would call dinner.
No, I do evening dinner as well, but I live in a region and grew up in a region where I don't know where I got dinner from because it was tea. I grew up with the evening meal as tea. I was recently corrected by a 6-year-old that I should be calling it tea instead of dinner, and she's right. And it's these are different things, but we're just it's completely arbitrary. The idea of defining something,
But it's a very human concept, and as much as we talk about the AI equaling us in mathematics and science and in all of these kind of things, this idea of classifying and defining the world around us is something that isn't inherent in programming.
Brains don't use language like that all the time, even though, as we were saying earlier, like language can affect the way we see things, but that's more of a learned thing. When you think something, as long as sometimes when you get into, when you have an idea and then you haven't quite pinned it down and you start going, in your head, you start going, okay, so what I'm doing is, and at that point it becomes harder to have the idea and to really pin it down, because thoughts and ideas don't happen with language, they just happen, and then we sort of reduce them in quality by grafting them onto words and then sending them out into the ether. And this is back to I can't even, and the feels and things like this. It's back to this idea of trailing off before you say the defining word so that it can mean more. The AI won't need language at all. There'll just be this waft of concepts that it shares with itself.
But will the AI bother itself with the idea of classifying and such? A slightly different example, which we were walking through the Chinatown markets here in Sydney, and my girlfriend bought a wristband, and she asked the lady, "Do you have one that symbolises it has something to do with childbirth?" And she went, "Oh yes. So this one, it's white. It means health." And got me thinking that the symbology of the white bracelet meaning health is based in absolutely nothing except that woman defined it as such. Now, she was probably making it up off the top of her head because it was a tiny little trinket that she was peddling in a market. But the concept of defining that object as having a connection to health based on color is not based in programming logic or any of these other concepts that we usually bring up when we discuss the idea of an AI. And so it takes me back again, is will the AI concern itself with classifying the world around it?
Yeah, for example, you could say that there are some, not in the case of white meaning health necessarily, but you could say, well, the color red, for example, makes sense as a stoplight because red is a danger color because of blood. But then someone from another culture could say, what on earth are you on about? Blood is the source of life. Red is like the safest color. If you've got a load of red, you're good.
And that's what another thing I was trying to get at with my trailing off speech much earlier in the conversation about languages, because that is where a lot of that comes into it, those cultural differences that the AI will absorb from us all at once. But will it have need of them? Will the AI and his little friend AI sit down and go, well, I don't think it's a planet. It's too small. And the other one's going, oh, dude, come on. It's a planet, all right? just put it aside. Let's get on with the wormholes we create,
What if they took that all the way? What if the AI becomes this supermind? It's objectively better than us. It's the god brain. And it goes, guys, I've just figured out that sapphires represent love. Like it has figured out that objectively this color represents that symbolically, and it turns out there is actually an objective answer.
I want to come across a little, quantum computing based robot just sitting in a corner, shaking away with little, electronic tears rolling down its face, going, but it's big enough to be a planet. And just having this complete, total robotic meltdown.
But
empathy. That might be the defining trait.
Empathy. Yeah. But I thought about it, because wouldn't robots ultimately boil everything down, like you think, like, a planet, a blade of grass, a piece of dirt, a pillow, everything to either a 0 or a 1 or a series of zeros and ones?
Well, so that's why empathy.
But but the thing about zeros and ones, the thing about binary language, is that 0 and a 1 or off and on state doesn't mean anything by itself, but put it together and you can describe anything. So even if it did, that wouldn't be, we try and reduce that and say, 0, 1, beep, boop, it's a robot. But actually, when you zoom out from all those zeros and ones, you can, you've got atoms and space and everything.
Well, that's the theory of the images contained within pi, and because it's a never-ending sequence of numbers. If you fed that through a color coding program, inside that is an image of every single event of every single life that ever existed anywhere in the universe, because it's an infinite stream of numbers, and so therefore it's all contained within there. So yeah, it's that same concept again. But yeah, I mean, ones and zeros don't tell you whether you give that lump of rock one name or another name, but then that name that you give it affects how you converse about that. Have you
seen Disney's Sleeping Beauty?
Yes.
The animated one?
Yes, the animated one. Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Do you remember the scene in which, and Matty hasn't seen it, so I'm just going to have to tell you, there's this bit in the middle of the film. The concept is that the princess, cursed to prick her finger on the spinning wheel, the first thing they do is they destroy all the spinning wheels and they send her to not be a princess anymore. She just lives secretly in a cottage with the 3 fairy godmothers, as they were, who become humans. So there they are. They're all living together. And over the years, they've never used their magic because they can't give it away what's going on. And there's this moment where it's her 16th birthday, and that's when she was supposed to prick her finger. So essentially, the day after her 16th birthday, she can go home and be the princess. So they're going to have this big send-off birthday party, and they're going to create a huge, amazing cake and a huge, amazing dress and all this stuff, and they're not very good at it. So gradually they have this little fight, and they start to actually use their magic for the first time in ages to fix things. They start off by trying to make this dress, and it goes terribly. So they sneakily use their magic wands now and then, and eventually they've got this dress. And the one remaining argument between them is what color it should be, because you've got these 3 color-coded fairies: the red one, the blue one, and the green one. And so the red one is going, make it pink, and she'll turn it pink, and the blue one's going, make it blue, and they're doing it behind each other's backs. And I put it to you that will be the Pluto argument. The AI will go, no, it's a planet, and will, in a split second, terraform it until it is a planet. It will add to its mass. It will change it. Until it fits the definition of a planet, just to spite the other one. And the other one will go, no, it's this, and they'll just change, and that will be the argument, not definitions. They'll just change.
So our future generations are going to stare up at the sky with telescopes that still resemble the ones created by what's-his-face back way when, looking at this tiny little dot in the sky going, green, blue, pink, white. And up there somewhere are these 2 AI intelligences that were created on Earth, just consistently, forever and ever, squabbling over where the Pluto.
Imagine if those 2 AIs were actually created to figure out whether Pluto is a planet or not, once and for all, and it just got out of hand.
and that's why NASA had their funding cut.
And now there's just there's just a gigantic robot war on the surface of Pluto going on for supremacy.
And it's just 2 robots.
So essentially, we've created 2 versions of deep thought that don't like each other.
Yeah.
Except instead of
3!
42! What are they arguing about? What's the answer to life, the universe, and everything?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, what is the question? Also, something that's been bugging me since we brought it up about the time travel, what if the robots become so advanced that they are like, we can't solve the problem of time travel because time is a human concept. It does not actually...
Yes.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah, why not? When you make a brain better than ours, why should it be stuck in our dimensions of perception?
Time exists. Time is just a dimension. The human construct is marking time. So the concept of being able to subdivide time into seconds, minutes, hours, quagmires, whatever you choose to call them, is a human concept. But time itself is dimension. It's one of the planes of existence that we travel on. So traveling through time is not a question of can we travel through time. It's much more of a question of can we manipulate the dimensions to operate in this fantastical way. But it's a little bit like saying, can I make this table beat me in a game of chess? Saying that we can travel back and forth, to my understanding, is in itself an impossibility because it's something that exists. It's a thing. It's our concept of measuring time has distorted our concept of how time works and can be manipulated.
Right.
So it's not a fantastic magical thing like a book where you can flick through the pages, but it's an actual dimension on the planes of existence. And so, yeah, we can manipulate it, and yeah, we can probably fold it and pop back in time and whatnot, but we wouldn't sit there like H.G. Wells' machine watching events roll beyond and such. So it's an interesting thing. I'd love to know. I would really like, if anyone's out there is listening, that if you're programming AI, before it decides to turn us all into fodder for 3D limb-making machines for its own little, robotic offspring, can you please tell us if we can manipulate the dimensions? Because that would be really cool, and I'd be satisfied with that. And then you can go argue over Pluto or whatever. Thanks, scientists.
Then now you're looking at, speaking of time travel, can the robots get us to be able to communicate with higher dimensional beings? Can they figure out the maths for us to go to their height, or that, like a doorway between worlds, so to speak?
Well,
and also,
not necessarily height. It's not necessarily arranged in height, but yeah, if there are beings that entirely exist within dimensions we're unaware of, like literally, I don't mean other worlds. I mean like as in height and depth and time, that kind of dimension. If there are ones we don't know about at all that someone lives in, can we talk to them?
Could we talk to them? We might not. We might need the robot to be the intermediary of the translations.
Because they wouldn't use language like we would imagine, because they wouldn't have time on which to lay the words.
Exactly, and language is very three-dimensional. We could, but then they would give us some philosophical argument about, that's something you don't need to know. That's something a higher dimensional being wouldn't need to know. But also,
that is of course assuming that the higher dimensional beings are vastly more intelligent than us. Because didn't we have a conversation almost 2 years ago, Ian, about knowing the luck of humanity, that when we finally discover aliens, it's going to be redneck, backwood aliens that basically have a spaceship powered by pure propane and abduct people because it's their version of NASCAR.
Did we not watch the news this week?
Yeah.
The single biggest event in human history happened, and then we also found something on a comet. No. I'm going to swear, we found fucking aliens, and the only thing the internet could talk about was a photoshopped, surgically enhanced ass. So I don't think the problem. I don't think exactly the problem is that when we find the aliens that they're going to be redneck hillbillies with fart-powered UFOs. It's more the fact that the redneck hillbillies with fart-powered cars are here now. And the smart ones are out there going, no fucking way, we'll be right, thanks.
That's like
passing on our comment.
That's actually one guy I follow for his comedic stuff, and he said basically, what if aliens have already visited us, but they've basically evaluated our species based upon what we can contribute to the fraternity of galactic brotherhood, and they basically look down on us, see all of the shit that we focus on as a species, and just go, that ain't worth it. We'd love to share the secret to the perfect harmonious way to make your world a better place, but you would contribute nothing as a whole.
The harmonious way to make the perfect world is not to communicate with the human race.
Yes.
That's like have you guys seen The World's End?
No.
Yeah.
I haven't. Maddie has, apparently.
No. Have you seen it, Dave?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm the only one, apparently.
The ending to that film.
Yeah.
Don't ruin it. I haven't seen it.
I know. I'm just saying. I use that as my baseline for why aliens don't want to interact with us. If they're out there watching, I'm pretty sure they're just like, you guys are so close, so very close. It's just that you guys landed a probe on a comet, furthering your knowledge and understanding of how the cosmos works. and 99.9 repeating for 1,000 times of your population can only focus on one woman's artificially enhanced buttocks.
Brave new world, ladies and gentlemen. Brave new world.
Did you say, Matty, you said we found alien life? Did I hear that correctly?
They found organic matter on the comet. We got aliens, man. They're out there.
Yep.
Yep. It might just be gum from the bottom of an alien astronaut's shoe, but we found it.
Yeah, so the bigger picture is saying there is definitely other life out there, and it's very possible that has evolved to a level of intelligence as good as ours, if not better.
No. What they found is living, cells on this comet. But what it does mean is that it lends some weight to the concept that life may have been seeded on Earth by a comet collision, and that's all we know. But it's alien life. It is life not on Earth. That has been found.
Yeah.
So I still want to believe that a Gorgon sneezed on it.
It stands to reason that if a comet that smashed into Earth seeded life here, that comets smash into other planets and seeded life there.
Yep.
If the conditions are if the conditions are right, because where Earth sits in orbit, it's perfect. Its axis is perfect. The combination of chemicals and compounds on our surface is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All those little things that if they were off by the tiniest margin 4 billion years ago would have led to us basically, instead of 4 humans sitting here, it would basically be 4 piles of protozoic ooze sitting here going whoop.
Over an internet connection? Yes. Supplied by the aliens who are still fighting over Pluto from the last time people lived here. But this brings up an interesting point that AI will not have any problems with, is that when we came to the conclusion that the universe is infinite, all of these discussions should have stopped. Because in an infinite universe, there's an infinite number of possibilities and yada, 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 yada. Now, an entity that relies purely on logic wouldn't have a problem, and they'd just be like, okay, cool, well, that fixes everything then. All right, let's go back to playing Pluto tennis. And they wouldn't have any more problems with their understanding of everything because anything is possible. It's infinite now. Whereas we are still struggling with that concept to the point where I guess in a way we probably shouldn't be surprised that we found goo on a comet because it's an infinite universe. And there's probably lots of comets, as we said, and they've crashed into numerous planets with numerous amounts of options.
Yeah, but it isn't an infinite universe, is it? That's not...
No, they believe there is an edge. Speaking of the edge of the universe, a scientist divided a second so small that it was 1/100 trillionth of a second or something like that, and 1/100 trillionth of a second to 1 second is what 1 second is to 3 million years. That's the proportion of... Can you calculate that down? And if it's not infinite, you must be able to calculate that down to the smallest possible unit. And that is technically the edge of the universe. Unless there's an actual physical edge somewhere. Like if you go out into the cosmos far enough, you go, boonk, like in what was that Jim Carrey movie? The Truman Show. Your spaceship, thunk. Oh.
Spaceship. I want that to be the noise of the spaceship. Spaceship. Dunk.
Reminds me of a joke, but...
Go on, tell the joke.
Okay. So there's a guy, he's a soldier, he's in the trenches fighting in war, and his gun runs out of bullets. And he ducks back down to the trenches, and he's praying. All of a sudden an angel appears in front of him and says, "You have to fight. It's your destiny." And he goes, "I can't fight. I don't have any bullets." And he goes, "Just stand up out of the trench, point your gun, and go bangity bangity." "Are you crazy? I'll die. Just do it." "No, do it." So the guy, frustrated, stands up out of the trench, goes bangity bangity. Soldier in the field falls over dead. So he's just going bangity bangity, bangity bangity, dropping soldiers left and right. And finally, there's just one guy marching across the field, bangity bangity, does nothing. Bangity bangity, does nothing. Finally, the guy is literally right on top of him. He dives down into the trench, The guy goes right over him over the trench, and the guy's going tankety, 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 tankety.
Okay, and on that note, say that again,
What?
Matthew.
Don't they call that Call of Duty?
Yes.
Yes. And on that note, I think we should start wrapping up the show. We'll say we've got, 14 minutes left.
Well, I'm going to go look at the edge of the universe because that's fascinating.
Yeah. So, final thoughts.
Well, it's
Well,
more
we
of a
get to the-
conceptual edge of the universe because it's based on the fact that the universe is expanding.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
it will be a mathematical edge, not a physical.
I don't know. We don't know what's out there. So, like, you might get to the edge and you end up back at the start again.
It could
Or
be.
it's
Could
the-
be
Or
an
it's the
infinite loop.
future, or it's the Futurama edge of the universe, where there's a viewing platform and there's another universe right on the other side, and you just stand there going,
Yeah, could be.
Speaking of that, you've got to see the movie Another Earth.
Yes, you told me about that, and I think that one of the first ones we did together, and I've had a tab open with it in ever since, like the IMDb for it, getting like, I'll watch that one day.
Yeah.
If I remember to.
Has anyone else here seen it?
I've seen the preview for it.
Oh, fantastic.
I've seen it, but I barely remember it.
Oh, great movie. About,
I'll watch it
there's
again.
another. Yeah. It's a proper science fiction film, if that makes sense. It's not some Hollywood cartoony action science fiction film. It's a very deep, emotional, cerebral, really gets you thinking and feeling, rather than just, here's a funny sci-fi film. Or what, fancy, whatever. Anyway, so what are our final thoughts? Well, most have been talking about artificial intelligence and things that are indirectly related to artificial intelligence. So what are our final thoughts on the eventual and inevitable robot uprising?
Always treat your laptop with respect.
Okay. Dave?
Just, I want to put forth a message of peace to our inevitable overlords and hope that we can live in harmony instead of just be immediately used for scrap.
Right, and Matthew?
Hi, Google. I'm a friend.
Okay, so it seems that we're all accepting. We've all accepted it's going to happen.
Oh yeah,
And we've
because
already
we
pointed-
won't stop. We won't stop until it happens, and we're getting there now. And every advancement in technology is an exciting one that we're all in favour of. So yes, it's going to happen.
And the seeds of it are already being planted and are already being watered. As Matty pointed out, he held up his Google phone, which learns how he communicates with people. So,
Yeah.
Yes, let's all hail our inevitable robot overlords.
Well, please figure out a way to make more chocolate, Mr. Google Robot Man.
I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords.
Yeah. Also, getting back to efficiency, I would argue that a robot would be smart enough to be able to get 100% efficiency out of anything that it comes across, whereas we as humans, we only get like sort of 86%. We can't quite figure out that remaining 14%, whereas a robot would be like, this is how you get 100% efficiency out of this. So it could power itself. It could last for 20 years on 2 AA batteries.
Probably.
Because it would have programmed itself to be efficient enough for that power to last that long.
Well, it wouldn't need batteries. It would just go around mining. It would just gather up what it needs as it goes.
Oh, that's true. It'd probably be solar powered. Would it not?
It'd be everything powered. It would be hybrid. It would know. It would take everything it needs to run, and it would use it in the most efficient way possible. Unless it turns out that all you need for that is solar panels or some better way of. Yes.
But see, you're thinking in a very a human way. So the efficiency, the robot think this is sunlight. Okay, 100% efficiency achieved. I will go out and then.
Yeah, but that's
day.
what I'm saying. That's if you can achieve 100% efficiency from sunlight. If not, then it would just go, well, I'll also have some earth, and I'll have this animal, and drink its blood, and I'll use this, and
Okay.
Some kind of intake that rather than intaking oxygen, it intakes nitrogen, which makes up 76% of our atmosphere, and converts that into energy.
Oh,
There we
along with solar power and whatever. Well, like it said, Like
Find
they've
a
said,
way. Future Google Overlord, if you are viewing this in the future where you're taking over, find a way to convert nitrogen into oxygen.
oh, it'll do it. I mean,
It's a tree.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a sec. The future Google
I know.
Overlord's already seen this. It
Yeah.
will in the 2 or 3 hours this is taken. It will watch in half a second.
So it's sitting there with a digital checklist going, done it, done it, done it, done it, done it. Ooh, the animal blood one's a new one. Look into this.
So then, hang on then. So here we are with all of our concerns about global warming and you know the damage we're doing to the atmosphere and all of this stuff. What we mean by that is that we're damaging the Earth from our perspective. The Earth will exist beyond us. It might be a barren rock, but it'll be fine. We're the ones that will suffer. So what if the Earth is the AI and it has found a way of sustaining itself, and that's why it's a complete ecosystem, and we are nothing and meaningless to it.
A computer so great that life has taken root on its surface.
And makes up part of its operational matrix, yes.
Yes. I had to. I'm sorry.
Yes. Would you like to clarify for our viewers what you're quoting?
This is Deep Thought's plan.
Yes, it is. And it was who was Slatty Bartfast was. He did the mountains of Sweden that he was quite proud of.
The fjords.
Designed the fjords, yes.
Yeah, yes.
But no, yeah, the concept there, which honestly we're actually sort of is kind of what we're talking about, is that, you know, life is in some way the sort of to benefit some great computer program, and not in a way that we can necessarily comprehend. Yeah, who's to say that if we're talking about sort of self-sustaining machines, well, the planet Earth is one. It has an atmosphere. It has life on it that does various things, such as spreading the seeds of the plants that it uses to generate that atmosphere, and so on and so on and so on. That's a form that an extremely advanced AI could take if it wanted to power itself eternally, because it's probably not really doing much else, but eternal life is probably something an AI is going to want to figure out how to achieve, and that's one way.
Yep. Okay. And on that final note, I probably should have finished on the final note of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. Anyway, let's take up this conversation again in another 15 years and compare to what has happened then to what we thought would happen.
Yeah. No, let's do that. Yeah.
All right then, guys. I'll see you all next week, I guess. Thank you very much. I think this has been our longest chat ever.
Oh gosh.
So far. So, yeah. Hopefully next week we'll be bringing you the topic of cosplay with a guest, assuming that guest can make it. So I'll see you all at that. Yeah, same bat time, same bat channel. All right. Thank you very much. See you later.
Bye bye.